Welcome to Moonmind Temple, a place where every story is told in a voice as gentle as the night breeze, where ancient wisdom meets the quiet moments of the soul today. Here, you can set aside the busyness and noise and listen to the whispers of time, soft yet profound lessons that bring you closer to yourself. The night has passed its halfway mark. In the high sky, thin clouds scatter like wisps of smoke, revealing a stretch of starlit heavens. A full moon hangs still, like an ancient lantern suspended in the emptiness. From the distant mountains, a breeze drifts down, carrying the earthy scent of wild grass and the cool, damp fragrance of soil after a light afternoon rain. At the foot of the mountain, the murmur of a stream blends with the steady chorus of night insects, creating a gentle, unbroken melody. From time to time, the wind rustles through a stand of bamboo, producing a faint sound, as if someone were whispering a story from long ago. You are here, inside a small wooden room of an old temple. A lantern hanging on the wall casts a warm golden glow, soft as a hand caressing your tired eyes. On a low wooden table rests a pot of green tea, its steam mingling with the faint aroma of incense. Everything seems to say that this is a place where you can set your burdens down, where your shoulders can finally rest after a long day. Take a seat or lie in whatever position feels most comfortable. Let your shoulders drop. Let your chest soften, let your breath return to its natural rhythm. With every inhale, you draw in a fresh, cool stream of air. With every exhale, you give back to the wind the tension you've been carrying. There's no need to push away your thoughts, just let them drift, like clouds passing across the sky of your mind, without holding on. Tonight, I will take you on a journey, not one of the feet, but one of the soul, where each story is a small resting place. And at each resting place you may discover something that seems simple but changes the way you see life, that no one enters our lives by accident. Some people come to bring a smile, some leave behind a wound, some pass through only once, yet leave a mark we remember forever. Some stay for years, then depart, leaving an empty space and lessons we could not have learned otherwise. No one arrives too early and no one leaves too late. Picture yourself stepping out onto the temple veranda. Before you, the whole valley opens under a veil of thin mist. In the distance, hills rise and fall like ocean waves, stilled mid-motion. Above, the sky is so vast you feel like nothing more than a speck of dust standing in the middle of infinity. The wind plays through your hair, brushes against your cheek, carrying the fragrance of wildflowers blooming somewhere along the stream. In this moment, you are no longer in a hurry. You're not chasing tomorrow, nor held back by yesterday. You simply stand there, listening to the temple bell ringing in the distance. Each chime sends invisible ripples outward, touching every leaf, every drop of dew, and finally, your own heart. I invite you to walk with me through these stories. Each one is a doorway to a different corner of truth, showing us that the connections in life are never random. Some people are silent teachers, some are mirrors reflecting who we are, some are the wind pushing us toward a new path. And when we understand this, we complain less, regret less, and learn to cherish even the briefest of moments. Our journey begins now. The first step will take us to a mountain monastery, where a young man named Hiroshi is searching for the answer to that very question. Early the next morning, when the sun still lingered shyly behind a veil of mist, the temple bell rang for the first time that day. The sound was unhurried, unpressing, spreading steadily outward, as if waking the entire valley still lost in slumber. Along the stone path leading into the temple courtyard, cherry blossoms drifted down slowly, turning in the air before settling on the green moss below. The air carried the sweet, clean taste of the mountains, making each deep breath feel like a gift. Hiroshi, a young man who had just emerged from months of upheaval, walked slowly along that path. He had come to this monastery with a question that had never left his mind. Why do some people step into our lives at such uncanny moments, precisely when we need them most, even if we don't yet realize it? And are these encounters merely coincidences, or is there an unseen thread connecting them, one we have yet to notice? When Hiroshi stepped into the courtyard, he saw Master Hotaka sitting beneath the canopy of an old cherry tree. His back was slightly bent, yet his eyes were bright and clear enough to reflect the first rays of the morning sun. His face was like a map of time, its wrinkles the roads already traveled, his gaze a lantern still burning quietly through countless seasons of rain and shine. Hiroshi bowed, then sat beside him. Neither spoke. There was only the sound of wind threading through the leaves and the lingering bell tones that seemed to join sky and earth. After a while, Hiroshi finally spoke, his voice slow but heavy with longing. "Master, I've met many people in my life. Some came and went, some stayed for a very long time, and some left me with wounds that have yet to heal. I've always wondered, are all these meetings just random, or does each one carry a meaning I have yet to understand?" Master Hotaka tilted his head, his eyes seeming to see through the haze clouding Hiroshi's mind. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he caught a fallen petal in his palm, studying it as if listening to the silence itself. Then his voice rose, low and steady, like the temple drum at dawn. "No one enters your life by accident, Hiroshi. Some come to lift you when you are weak. Some come to challenge you when you are strong. Even those who bring pain, they are part of the path as well, for they force you to learn lessons you might never understand otherwise." Hiroshi lowered his head, his hand tightening. A face appeared in his mind, that of an old friend who had betrayed his trust, leaving behind an emptiness not easily filled. His voice trembled. "But what about those who hurt me? Was their presence truly necessary?" The master turned his gaze toward the garden ahead, where a small stream trickled between moss-covered stones. He spoke slowly, each word seeming to settle into the water. "They are harsh teachers. They teach you about limits, about how to protect your heart. They help you understand that not everyone will stay, and that very truth makes you cherish all the more those who do walk beside you. Every encounter, whether joyful or sorrowful, plants a seed within you. Whether you choose to nurture it or let it wither, that is up to you." A cherry blossom petal landed on the surface of the stream, spinning gently before drifting away. Hiroshi watched it, and the heaviness in his chest seemed to float away with it. Then, "How do I know who to keep and who to let go?" Hiroshi asked, his eyes still following the water's flow. Master Hotaka smiled, his gaze warm as sunlight breaking through morning mist. "You don't have to decide in haste. When you live truthfully, those who belong on your path will find a way to stay, and those who no longer fit will naturally leave. What matters is that you learn what you must before they go, and that you feel gratitude even for the briefest encounters." The temple bell rang again, its sound deep and resonant, carrying far into the valley. Hiroshi bowed low, not only to honor the master before him, but also to give thanks for this very moment. For he now understood that his meeting with Master Hotaka was itself a perfectly timed connection, like a blossom falling, never out of season. That afternoon, the sky over the mountain changed color slowly. The last light of day filtered through layers of crimson maple leaves scattering into shimmering spots across the temple courtyard's time-worn tiles. A gentle breeze carried the scent of incense from the main hall, mingling with the warm resin fragrance of pine. Inside the meditation hall, Master Noro sat at a simple tea table, surrounded by his young students. The atmosphere was both solemn and comforting, more like a family conversation than a strict lecture. Takashi, a novice monk, not yet 20, sat near the window. His gaze drifted to the courtyard outside, where a few maple leaves floated to the ground, and he unconsciously furrowed his brow. A question had been weighing on him for weeks, and today he decided to ask. When the room fell quiet, Takashi spoke hesitantly. "Master, I often see others in pain, and my instinct is to help right away, but I'm afraid that if I leave them to handle it themselves, I'll be heartless. Yet if I help, what if I end up harming them instead?" Master Noro didn't answer immediately. He set his teacup down, the rising steam curling like a thin mist in the room. His eyes narrowed, not against the light, but as though searching for a story long kept in memory. "Long ago," Noro began, his voice deep and measured, "a man was passing by a bush when he saw a small cocoon trembling. Inside, a butterfly was struggling to break free. Seeing this, his heart filled with compassion. He took a small knife and carefully cut the opening wider, helping the butterfly out more quickly. Indeed, it emerged with ease, but its body was swollen, its wings fragile, and it could not fly. Before long, it died." The room fell silent. Even the wind through the shutters seemed to slow to listen. "Do you know why?" Noro asked, his gaze sweeping the circle. "Because it wasn't ready," one student answered softly. "That's right," the master nodded. "The struggle to break free from the cocoon is what pushes blood into its wings, giving them the strength to fly. The man's help, though born of kindness, had taken away its one chance to grow strong." Takashi lowered his head. The master's words struck something deep within him. "Then, if I see someone suffering, what should I do? Am I supposed to just stand by?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Noro smiled faintly, his eyes warm yet resolute. "It's not about turning your back, but about knowing when the time is right. True kindness isn't about satisfying your own desire to do good. It's about serving the other person's growth. Remember, even the Buddha, with infinite wisdom and compassion, only taught the Dharma to those who came to him and opened their hearts to listen." Another student, still doubtful, asked, "But if someone's about to fall off a cliff, I can't wait for them to ask before I help, right?" Noro chuckled softly. "In emergencies, yes, step in. But outside of those moments, learn to stand nearby and let them find their own way out of the cocoon. Only then will their wings be strong enough to fly." Outside the window, a yellow butterfly passed by, its wings beating with strength in the late afternoon light. Takashi watched it go, his heart lighter. He understood now that sometimes true compassion isn't about widening the cocoon. It's about believing the other person has the strength to break it open when the time comes. The next morning, white clouds draped across the mountainside, wrapping around the temple roof like a silk ribbon. Birds sang from the bamboo grove behind, blending with the distant murmur of a stream to form a gentle symphony of early dawn. Along the stone path leading to the temple's back garden, dewdrops clung to the leaves, sparkling like tiny gems in the waking sunlight. Master Hogi, a monk known for his kindness and depth, walked slowly beside Shara, a young disciple who had joined the temple not long ago. Shara's face was quiet, almost heavy. She had spent months entangled in relationships that left her drained. Despite her patience and compassion, she felt her peace slowly being worn away. Hoagie noticed the heaviness in her steps. He didn't ask right away. Instead, he led her past rows of white chrysanthemums and stopped before a young sapling. Its slender trunk was wrapped tightly by a delicate vine, coiling evenly, but squeezing a little more each day. "What do you see here?" Hoagie asked, his gaze gentle but deep. Shara bent down and touched the vine lightly. "It's clinging too tightly. If no one removes it, the tree will suffocate." "That's right," Hoagie nodded. "People are the same. Some relationships may begin as closeness and care, but over time they tighten around your freedom, make you doubt yourself, and gradually shrink your vitality." Shara was silent. Unpleasant memories surfaced, subtle yet cutting remarks. Times she was made to believe she remembered wrong or overreacted. "Master, if I walk away, does that make me heartless?" she asked, her voice trembling. Hoagie looked at her, his smile warm as the morning sun. "The Buddha taught that you are just as worthy of love as anyone else in this world. Protecting yourself is not selfish, it's preserving your peace so you can love longer. You cannot pour water for others if your own cup is empty." He paused, then continued. "There are 3 things you should remember. First, express your feelings clearly and calmly without blame. For example, "I'm not comfortable discussing this topic." Second, limit the amount of contact in a way that preserves your mental well-being. Third, practice emotional detachment, not to become cold, but to understand that another person's behavior reflects the state of their own mind, not your worth. Shara listened closely, feeling as if a thin mist inside her was beginning to lift. She realized that just as this sapling needed the vine removed to grow, her heart also needed boundaries so that her compassion wouldn't be stifled. As they walked toward the old stone well, the morning light shimmered across its rippling surface. Hoagie drew a ladle of clear water and handed it to Shara. "Drink, and remember to keep the water within you pure. Only when it is pure can you share it with others." Shara accepted it and took a sip. The cool water flowed down her throat, spreading through her body, like a quiet reminder that loving herself was the strongest foundation for loving others. An autumn afternoon at the mountain temple had its own special beauty, a quiet, profound beauty, like the smile of someone who had endured many trials, yet still carried a sense of calm. The sunlight now was no longer harsh, but warm, slipping through the gaps between golden ginkgo leaves. Each time the wind stirred, the yellow leaves drifted down, slowly spinning onto the red brick courtyard like fragments of memory settling softly into place. Alina, a traveller from the west, sat on the wooden steps, both hands wrapped around a cup of hot tea. The steam mingled with the scent of dried cinnamon, warding off the crisp chill of the afternoon. She had been here nearly a week, yet she still hadn't found an answer to the question that had followed her for months. Why, among hundreds of acquaintances and thousands of social media connections, did she still feel so lonely? As if sensing her thoughts, Master Kobo, the 60-year-old abbot, walked over and sat beside her. He didn't ask directly, only smiled and watched the falling leaves with her. After a while he spoke. "You know," he began, "in this vast forest only a few ginkgo trees are planted in rows. The old gardeners did this so each tree would have enough space, enough sunlight, and enough good soil to grow. If they're planted too close together, the trees will grow tall in search of light, but with shallow roots easily toppled by a storm." Alina smiled faintly. "You mean I've been planting too many trees in my own garden?" Kobo nodded, his eyes warm. "That's right. In life we may meet many people, passing encounters, casual acquaintances, polite exchanges, but the relationships that truly nourish your soul are few, and you cannot care for hundreds of trees at once because you only have one heart and a limited amount of time." He poured more tea into her cup, the steam rising with a soft fragrance. Choose to nurture a few truly deep connections. With those, you can say what you fear will be misunderstood, sit in silence without discomfort, cry without being judged. Quantity doesn't define worth, it's quality that creates warmth. Alina stayed quiet for a long time. She thought of rushed conversations, of scrolling past dozens of messages without reading them, of crowded parties where her mind had wandered elsewhere. She realized that all this time she had been pouring her energy into keeping contact with too many people, yet hadn't truly been present for anyone. Kobo continued slowly. It's like drinking tea. If you drink too quickly, constantly changing to a new pot, you'll never taste the lingering sweetness left after each sip. Deep friendship is the same. It doesn't come from frequent, hurried meetings, but from listening, understanding, and patiently tending to it over the years. A light breeze passed, and several ginkgo leaves fell into Alina's lap. She smiled, picked one up, and held it in her palm. For the first time in months, her heart felt calmer, as if she had finally found a clear direction to choose fewer but deeper connections so that love, friendship, and kinship could take root and stand strong in her life. Dusk settled over the mountain like a honey-colored blanket draped gently over everything. The last rays of sunlight spilled gold across the temple's tiled roof, shimmering on the surface of the small pond in front. The deep, resonant sound of the temple bell rang out in slow intervals, lingering in the still air, as if calling everyone back to themselves. By the pond, Master Ryokan, a venerable monk known for his unshakable ease, was leisurely scattering handfuls of food for the fish. Schools of them swam up, rippling the water in gentle, spiraling patterns. Sitting across from him was Haru, a young student who had only been at the temple for a few months. His eyes carried the weariness of someone who had been walking a long road with a backpack full of stones. Ryokan was silent for a while before asking softly, "What are you carrying in your heart that feels so heavy?" Haru lowered his head, his hands clenched. "Master, I feel like a failure. I've tried my best to meet the expectations of my parents, my teachers, my friends, but it's never enough. I'm afraid of disappointing people, so I push myself harder and harder, yet the more I try, the more exhausted I become. And even then, I still can't give them what they want." Ryokan smiled, not in mockery, but with the knowing warmth of someone who had seen this in many young people before. He plucked a fallen leaf drifting near the shore and held it out for Haru to see. "Do you see this leaf? It has left the branch and now rests in my hand. It doesn't try to become a flower, nor force itself to turn green again. It simply is a leaf, whole and complete in its own form." Haru stayed silent, though his eyes still held doubt. Ryokan continued. "There's an old story about a man who wanted to give his friend the perfect gift. He searched and searched, adjusted and refined it endlessly. And in the end, the gift was never given because he always thought it wasn't good enough. As a result, his friend never received anything at all. Do you see the resemblance? You're so focused on being good enough by someone else's standards that you've stopped being yourself." The evening breeze carried the faint fragrance of camellias from the garden behind them, light and fleeting, like a quiet reminder. Ryokan placed the leaf back on the water, letting it drift away. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean abandoning your dreams or living carelessly. It means doing your best with a peaceful heart, free from the chains of trying to please everyone. When you stop chasing the approval of all, you'll feel a lightness you've never known. Haru watched the leaf float farther away, the ripples on the water widening until they merged and disappeared. Inside him, it felt as if a taut string had loosened. He took a deep breath, sensing the cool touch of the approaching night air, and for the first time in many months, he smiled without forcing it. Night had fully descended upon the temple. A full moon hung suspended in the sky, casting a gentle silver light that wrapped everything in a blanket of peace. The courtyard was empty of voices, holding only the whisper of wind weaving through the bamboo and the steady chorus of insects. In one corner, a yellow paper lantern swayed softly with the breeze, spilling warm light across the stone path. Inside the meditation hall, Master Michio sat across from Akari, a young nun who had studied here for 3 years. Tonight, there were no chants, no Dharma talks. Michio simply motioned for Akari to sit. His hand rested on a small bell beside him, but he did not strike it. They both sank into silence. At first, Akari felt a little uneasy. Her mind was filled with noises, the sound of the wind, the beat of her heart, scattered thoughts about tomorrow's tasks. But gradually, with no need to speak or respond to anyone, her mind began to settle. After a long while, Michio spoke, his voice quiet yet clear. "You know, the world is full of noise. People speak much, argue much, persuade much, yet rarely do they truly listen. And in that noise our hearts grow weary. Silence is not only for rest, it is a bridge that connects us to ourselves and to others in the deepest way." He shared with Akari an old story. Long ago, a king invited 2 famous poets to his palace. He asked them to quickly compose verses to capture the beauty of the royal garden. One immediately recited an ornate poem, rich with vivid imagery. The other remained silent, simply motioning for the king to walk with him into the garden. They strolled among the flowers, listened to the flowing water, felt the wind touch their skin, without uttering a word. When they returned, the king said, "Your poem was that silence. It made me truly see the garden." Akari smiled, understanding that words are not always the shortest path to the heart. Some pains require nothing more than a silent hand to hold. Some joys need only a glance to be shared. Michio concluded, "When you can sit with someone without feeling the need to fill the space with words, you've truly connected with them. And sometimes it is in silence that we hear our own hearts the clearest." Outside, the wind still moved gently through the bamboo, but to Akari it was no longer just a sound. It was a reminder that silence, when embraced with mindfulness, can become a profound gift of healing. The next morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, the first light of day poured into the valley in a golden hue. The temple bell rang out across the hills, mingling with the cheerful song of skylarks in the trees. The path leading from the temple gate down to the village was still damp with morning dew, each droplet clinging to the leaves and catching the light like tiny crystals. Along that path walked Kenji, a man from the city, who had recently quit his job after years under relentless pressure. He had planned to stay at the temple for only a few days to weather the storm in his mind, but unexpectedly found himself drawn into its unhurried rhythm. As he passed by the lotus pond, he heard a soft voice call out, "You're the new guest, aren't you?" It was Yumi, a middle-aged woman, picking lotus leaves in preparation for the afternoon's tea meditation. Her smile was as gentle as the morning mist, her eyes warm in a way Kenji hadn't seen for a long time in the city. They spoke for a while, starting with lotus flowers and the weather, and somehow the conversation drifted toward their personal journeys. Kenji admitted that he had just left a large corporation where he had spent his youth climbing to a managerial position. But the higher he rose, the further he felt from the things that once made him happy. I'd forgotten the simple relief of just drinking a hot cup of tea without checking my phone, he said with a wistful smile. Yumi listened quietly, then spoke slowly. The day I lost my husband, I thought my life had ended. But one day, by chance, I met an elderly woman at the market. She simply asked me, have you eaten yet? That simple question made me cry, because it reminded me there were still invisible threads tying me to this world. From that day on, I began to notice the small encounters. They're like seeds. You never know when they'll sprout, but they will always change the garden in your heart. Kenji thought about this for a long time. He realized that his chance meeting with Yumi that morning was also a seed, small, yet capable of changing the course of his life. As they parted, Yumi handed Kenji a lotus leaf and said, "You can take this back and brew tea. Don't overthink it. Just drink it the way the lotus leaf has lived, quiet and fresh." Kenji continued on the path back to the temple, the vibrant green leaf in his hand. He felt lighter, as though an invisible weight had eased. And he understood. Not all important encounters are planned in advance. Sometimes it is the unexpected moments that lead us exactly where we need to be. Evening descended, and the sky beyond the mountains softened into a gentle violet before slowly sinking into the deep shade of indigo. In the temple courtyard, lanterns had been lit, hanging along the wooden corridor. Their warm golden light spilled onto the stone floor, forming small, shimmering circles like peaceful islands in a sea of night. Takashi, Haru, Akari, and Kenji, 4 people with 4 different stories, happened to meet on the temple veranda. None of them had planned it, yet all chose the same seat facing the garden. There, a small pond mirrored the full moon, while the sound of crickets played on like an endless background melody. Master Noro approached, carrying a pot of hot tea. He poured a cup for each of them before sitting down himself, saying nothing at first. They drank in silence. The faint fragrance of the tea mingled with the warmth in their hands, softening something inside each of them. After a while, Noro spoke slowly. "You've all heard and lived many stories during your time here. But in the end, what matters most is not anyone else's story. It's the one you will write for yourselves when you leave this place." He looked at each of them, his gaze penetrating yet gentle. In this life, every person walks a path of their own. Some roads twist and wind, some run straight. Some are lined with flowers, others covered only in stones. But no matter which road you take, in the end, the destination is always yourself. And when you find yourself, you will see that everyone you met, every event you experienced, was never by chance. Takashi recalled the story of the butterfly and the lesson in patience. Haru thought of the leaf carried downstream. Akari felt silence as a bridge between 2 hearts. Kenji gently tightened his hold on the lotus leaf in his hand, knowing he had begun a new chapter. The moon rose higher, casting silver light over the temple roof. They all remained seated, no words needed, for they understood that sometimes a single quiet moment can speak for everything. In that place, 4 separate paths had crossed, only to part again in 4 different directions. Yet wherever they would go, they each carried the same thing. The peace they had found within themselves, a silent gift the temple had given them.